CATSAS-S. It's a name that some of you might have heard of, some of you might not have. But back home in Canada and all throughout the northern states, it's synonymous with the best. People would say things like, that's the cat's ass, or that's the real cat's ass, or just cat's ass, man. What a lot of people don't realize is that the name CATSAS actually came from my father, who coined the term after a line of fishing lures he created. And it actually stood for something. It stood for color, action, taste, sound, and smell systems. All of the ingredients my dad felt was necessary to catch the big ones consistently, one after the other. My dad was an amazing fisherman. People came from all over to put him on their shows and, learn fishing from my father. He was an outdoor writer and inventor of a lot of designs that are in use today. Back in the mid-70s to 80s, there was no internet. So you couldn't get your message out any other way than to go out on the road. So my dad painted up an old station wagon and a trailer and loaded up with stock and started heading out to all the stores on his route and then hitting the trade shows. I think the second year my dad graduated to the CATSAS bus and took an old school bus and converted it to kind of an RV that would be a showroom during the day. I used to travel with him every summer. It was the greatest thing ever. We used to go through all the Great Lakes and everything. We'd hit the stores, we'd go in, sell the product. Every time we got hungry, we'd fish. The lure was fantastic. Every time that thing hit the water, we were pulling out big pike. And we'd eat and we'd keep going. And I did that for several summers. But then a lot of mysterious things started happening. And my dad's patent was 16 years. And it was so revolutionary that it was a big threat to the major competitors. The big corps were prepared to do pretty much anything aside from bump my dad off to keep it off the market. And we had no idea what lengths they would go to. At first it just started with, the manufacturer's rep or jobber waiting down the road for us to leave. And then after my dad would sell a bunch of stock, they'd go in behind us and they'd actually buy up all the product. Full retail, take it out of the store so people couldn't try it. Well, they had nothing but money. And then my dad would just sell them more stuff, whatever. But then they got smart and they started making deals with the store owners to actually take the product out of the store, after paying for it full retail, smashing it all up, and making it look all broken and crap, and putting it in a clearance bin for 25 cents. So a $5 lure for 25 cents, so everybody would think it was junk. But people would still buy it, and word was still kind of slowly getting around. But then they got dirtier. 3 times somebody put something in my dad's gas tank at the bus and blew the motor. And one summer, right before we were due to leave with $50,000 worth of stock, we were getting the brakes done in a service station. And somebody actually broke into the service station. They didn't take any tools or anything else. They just took all of his stock. So he pretty much lost a whole year. Eventually my dad kind of gave up, I was probably 8 or 9 when he finally packed it in and gave up. He ended up so broke that he ended up having to live in that old school bus. He punched a hole in the side, ran the chimney through, and put a potbelly stove in it and lived in there in like -40. It wasn't just his dream, it was my dream too, It was this fantastic, revolutionary product with this great name. And even though he gave up, I was determined to succeed where he failed, I was going to take the product and I was going to do something with it. It drove my whole life. So as a kid growing up, as a teenager, all I wanted to do was get it out there and screw the guys. My dad would say, you can't beat them. And I would say, I'm going to do it, Dad. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get CATSAS back on the market. I remember when I was like 18, 19 years old, I raised my own money to fly to Toronto to meet with one of the biggest chain stores in Canada. And I actually got an order out of these guys for a bunch of CATSAS plugs. I brought it back to my dad, and he refused to fulfill the order. He said, no, you don't understand. They're just screwing you around. I said, how do you figure? He says, it happened to him before that he made a deal with one of these companies years earlier. And he went out and got the product made, and when the trucks came, they refused delivery. And he couldn't afford to fight them. What are you going to do? And he was convinced that that was the same thing, so he just refused. About 3 years before the patent expired, I went to my dad and I tried to convince him to sell the patent. I said, Dad, you know, you can get like $1 million for this patent. You go to one of these big guys, and if they can get a 3-year head start on the other guys, they'll buy it. They'll pay a lot of money. You don't have to live like this. He would just absolutely flat out refuse. I'm not selling to the guys that screwed me over. So I gave up too for a little while. Did my own thing. Back in like 2001, 2002, my dad finally gave me CATSAS and said, son, take it and run with it. If you can do something with it, go ahead. But by that time I was doing other things, and I kind of, you know, I was still excited, but I wasn't as driven. Before it was my whole life, it's all I wanted to do, but by this time, you know, I just had other things on the go. So I kind of dragged my feet a little bit. And around early 2006, I finally, you know, was making plans to release the release the line again. I had all these dreams of, you know, I was going to get my dad a house, and we were going to go on all these great fishing trips together, you know. I'm going to get to spend a lot of time with him, and you know, I was just going to pick up where he left off, and, you know, my kids are going to be involved in everything, but, you know, and in the fall of 2006, just boom. You know, he just died. Totally unexpectedly. I just ran out of time. I failed him, you know. And this time there's no corporations. There was no big conspiracy. It was all me. It was all on me, you know. So for me, everything kind of lost meaning, you know. My dad was my hero, and I failed him. So I was lost for a little while. But recently, I was at a fishing show, and I saw a product that somebody claimed that they were the originators of the idea of putting bait inside. You could pull the nose off, put the bait inside. And I told them, you didn't invent that. My dad invented that back in the 60s. And we had a little argument there, and I got really pissed off. So I decided, you know what, it's not too late. I'm going to reintroduce CATSAS-S. I'm going to reintroduce the product, and I'm going to make sure that everybody remembers who it was that created that entire industry, who the true innovator was. I know he's up there watching. I don't want to fail him again. So I hope you guys will help me out and share and like this video and take advantage of the perks. Thanks.